This is the interview with CommaKazie. With me are Shadowpaint and CommaKazie, obviously. Well, go ahead, Shadowpaint.
Alright. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Midnight Run. This is the Living Library. My name is Shadowpaint. I have right now with me Homebrew, and tonight we are not just going to be doing a reading, we are also going to be interviewing CommaKazie. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is CommaKazie here.
Alright, so first off, what is your most common fimfiction alias? And why?
Well, that would be Comma-Kazie. I started off with a throwaway name that I can't remember anymore. And I started working with Chengar Qordath on his project, which was then My Little Denarians. As a crossover of Harry Dresden and obviously My Little Pony, which is very good. Definitely recommend checking it out. And one of the things I noticed early on was a tendency to use a few too many commas where I needed to, so I would just type down in the comments Comma-Kazie, which in other words means I heartily disagree with the placement of this comma and therefore believe that removing it would better help the flow of the sentence. But I got tired of typing that really quickly, so I just put Comma-Kazie, and then I just started adopting it as my moniker.
Okay. So, where do you hail from, both offline and online?
Online can usually be found prowling on Steam and on Fimfiction. Mostly we do our work through Google Documents, but the rest of the time we're either on Steam working, on Steam just brainstorming, or on Steam playing games. So most of the time we're there. Offline, I can usually be found in front of my computer because I do a lot of work on that, including and excluding writing. Insofar as geography, I'm in the Mountain Standard Time, part of the United States. You're in beautiful Colorado. Won't say anything more past that. But it's it's very nice here. So.
Okie dokie.
Oh, that's cool. All right. What got you into My Little Pony in the first place?
Curiosity and an inability to stop when I probably should have. I think it was 2 years ago at this point. Almost 2 years ago to the day, give it or take a couple months. I was working on an internship, again here in Colorado, and I was browsing online, really big into Mass Effect at the time, and all of a sudden I saw these ponies popping up in Mass Effect forums. I was like, what in God's green earth is all this silliness? And I was like, no. So I was like, okay, this is just some crazy new internet fad. This is some crazy new internet fad. This is some crazy... Dear God, is that John Delancey? So that definitely got me intrigued, and obviously that was right before the start to Season 2. And I just thought to myself, okay, John Delancey, Q, from Star Trek, the one and only, is voicing My Little Pony. And I made the fateful click, and I watched an episode with headphones on in the dark of night, obviously. Tucked away behind the locked and barricaded door so that I could deny everything. And I watched the first episode, and I'm like, okay, that's that. I should see more.
So, your first episode was actually the first episode of the show.
Yeah, I debated jumping into it right at Season 2, but I'm one of those people that needs context. I mean, you could bring me the best book in the world in a series, and I would want to go back and start from the beginning, no matter how clunky or rocky it is, just because I want that context for the setting.
Mm-hmm.
For who these characters are, what's going on. So, I was like, John Delancey, okay, that's kind of a goal. I'll get to that part. If I get to that part, that'll be there. But overall, I started from the beginning and worked my way from there.
Okay. What do you like most about My Little Pony?
Oh, boy.
If you don't want to pick, name the three that are in that you're struggling to pick
I
between?
would have to say one of the best things about it is the fandom. The show itself has its own strengths. I mean, obviously, a lot of talent going into it, a lot of talent being poured into this creative process here to create the show. But what I like about it is how it inspires people, how so many people since the show's inception have come together and just put out, fan writing and fan art and fan music. I mean, some of my favorite music, honest to God, comes from one particular composer, Carbon Maestro.
Yeah.
Just insane the amount of detail that goes into that music, and the stories and this art, and I think it wasn't that first realization for this story, but this story was what made me go, wow, there's a lot into this, and that was Fallout Equestria.
Have you read it in its entirety?
I do. I have. I haven't started the other one, Project Horizons, but I have read the original, and I am currently debating which limb I'm putting up for donation so that I can buy a hard copy of Fallout Equestria.
Ooh, wow. I
have a tendency for hyperbole just a little bit. So. I wouldn't give a limb. Maybe a digit. I don't know. I don't need 10 fingers.
It's so hyped. There's actually going to be there's a game in production, but that sidetrack can wait for another day. Shadowpaint.
All right.
Go ahead.
What made you want to write My Little Pony fanfiction?
I've always been a fairly strong writer. I have a pretty long history with it in my education from high school through college. I always liked the idea of going into professional writing anyway, and while, I'm kind of not at a point where I can do that right now, this does give me that flexibility to exercise those creative skills. Mostly I signed on to the fandom just to lurk and to read, and I started following a couple of authors, Chengar Qordath being one of them. And he put out the notice one day, and he's like, I'm hit a bit of a rut. My current grammar Nazi's out. I need someone new. And this is still during when he was writing My Little Denarians. And so that was kind of a prerequisite. I needed to be familiar with Harry Dresden as well as familiar with, the ins and outs of grammar. So, I let him know. We logged on to Google Documents, started chatting, started working together, and been going strong ever since then, really.
Okay. What type of stories or characters do you like to write about most?
I like to write about, obviously, some of the sadder side of things. And honestly, I don't know why I keep coming back to it. What I like to do with my work, with my writing, is invoke a strong emotion, leave something that's going to last. Leave the reader, when they walk away, it's like, it's not just, oh, that was that. It's like, oh, wow, that was that. Hey, that's something that's going to stick with them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the comments to your stories on Fanfiction are any indication, then you are definitely doing it right.
Thank you. Yeah, it does definitely make my day to see those kind of comments, because I know that, what I'm doing, what I'm shooting for is I'm achieving what I'm shooting for. I'm making a story. I'm putting together a story that sticks with people after they put it down and walk away. And in my mind, if you can do that with a story, you're succeeding as a writer.
Mm-hmm. Next question, Shadowpaint.
Wait, there's another part to that. I'm pretty sure I went off the rails there. Sorry, I get shiny object syndrome worse than a magpie in a glitter factory. So.
I've never heard that one before. I'm gonna have to remember that one. All right. Awesome. So what helps you with the dreaded writer's block?
The dreaded, that definitely, collaborating with, my writing buddies on Steam definitely helps get through a part of that. When I sit down and go to write a scene, usually I have a certain way I want things to turn out. So I have an overarching idea of how it's going to go. It's the details. The devil is in the details and trying to get things up and going. What's this character going to say? How's it going to react? And it's kind of an annoyance for me because sometimes, I have a certain set of characters that I work with. And outside of that, it takes me a little bit of time to try and familiarize myself with them, and I don't always get it right. So sometimes what my writing buddies and I will do, we'll just get together on Steam and we'll run through a scene as some of the characters. Like I'll take Derpy, Chengar Qordath usually takes Cloudhammer. Trinary's very good at Rainbow Dash. I mean, very, very good at Rainbow Dash. So between all of us and a couple of others, or the three of us and a couple others sometimes, we run through a scene. And honestly, I think that's the best way to go about it, because what I envision happening isn't always what happens. Sometimes a character will say something that I didn't expect, but fits the character way better than what I was going to say. So I take that and run with it, and it's kind of reactionary. And once we're done with that part, then I go back and fill in the details.
So kind of like a role play.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. We do hash it out through the eyes of the characters. Each of us takes a character and goes from there.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, you don't need your own characters to do a role play.
I do have to say, having sat in on one of those sessions, it's pretty interesting to watch. It really is. Because it's like, okay. I didn't think she would say that, but hey, that actually fits with the scene.
Exactly.
The back and forth dynamic that I saw, and it was just Comma-Kazie and Chengar. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, but it was just them two in there, and I'm sitting there going, just silently watching this going, I could spend a Friday night doing this. This is entertaining.
Yeah, and I don't know how to pronounce his name either. I'm taking a shot in the dark. But yeah, I really do like the dynamic because he's really good with characters. I mean, really, really good. If his writing's any indication, he just creates these characters, he creates their viewpoints, and he can go through with them. And I'm getting better at that. Working just to practice my writing, my character building, and whatnot over the last years definitely helped. But he's still miles ahead of me on that.
Character portrayal can be one of the most challenging things about story writing. If you finally get, even if you get all the technical stuff down to a T, character development and such is still that's just the next level, basically.
And I've seen stories that are written flawlessly that have flat characters that I can't tell one from the other, and it's almost. And I'm not going to say any names, but I can think of a few off the top of my head, and it really just bothers me because I'm like, he's so good at everything else, and if you don't have an interesting character, I'm not going to stick around to finish it because why should I care? I don't invest in this character at all.
Yeah.
There's nothing to differentiate it.
So we also had a few questions about the story Innocence. We found Shadowpaint through her reading of that story, and now she's with us. She's been with us in the group for since before October last year. So that's also almost a year ago. It's one of the stories we definitely do recommend. It's a portrayal from Dinky's point of view of very tragic events, and you know more than the character telling the story, which is it keeps its happy, cheery tone until the end, despite it being a very tragic story.
No, even at the end, she thinks her mommy's just sleeping, and actually, the very first time I read that story, I felt my breath catch in my throat when I first read that last line. I was like, oh, wow. And I just sat there and stared at the computer screen for like 15 minutes going, wow.
So, Shadowpaint, go ahead. About the questions.
Alright, what gave you the idea for Innocence in the first place?
If memory serves, and I'm pretty sure it does at this point, it was during a chapter of My Little Denarians that Chengar Qordath was writing where, spoiler alert, obviously, there's a scene where the main character, Harry Dresden, has to get into a fight with a demonically possessed derpy, the Derpnarian, if you will. The demons are called Denarians, so Derpnarian. We love the pun culture. Sorry, shiny object. But there's a scene where you had to exorcise that demon. They're bringing Derpy back, and Dinky came out and thought something had happened to her mom. Now she's fine, obviously, but I was thinking about that later, and I thought to myself, well, what would have happened if Derpy hadn't been okay? What would have happened to Dinky from there? What would have happened to that family from that? And it was a little after that. I can't remember if it was before that chapter or after it, but the last roundup came up, and Derpy had her infamous speaking role. And I saw the dynamic between Rainbow Dash and Derpy, and it wasn't like, oh dear God, not this again. It's like, Derpy, what are you doing? It's more of a patient tone. It's like, well, as patient as Rainbow Dash can get, but it's not genuinely angry so much as frustrated, like you'd get with a really old friend. It's like, dude, seriously, what are you doing? That kind of tone. So from that, I extrapolated a little bit of back history, and I think we'd just started The Life and Times of a Winning Pony at that point, so we were starting to delve a little bit into those characters' back history, start fleshing that out a little bit. So I decided, what if Rainbow Dash was the one who would take care of Derpy's kids if she were gone? What if she were her godmom? And there's a separate story I'm working on called What's in a Name that leads up to that point. It's Derpy's, well, at that time she's called Bitsy, but it's her, unexpected pregnancy with Dinky and the dynamic between the characters leading up to that point. Spoiler warning, Dinky is born. But anyway, after that, I thought, what if Rainbow Dash is that? And my mind immediately backtracked. I was like, no, that'd be a terrible idea. Fluttershy, of all of the main six, would probably be the best mom figure. And, she'd probably be able to help them make that transition. And then I sat and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, she would, but that's not as much of a story. What if this instead is Rainbow Dash? How does that adjustment happen? So I went with that, and I ran with that, and I tossed that idea around a little bit, and I don't quite remember how I started writing the story. But I quickly decided that Dinky was the perspective I wanted to work with, and I came up with that last line, and I thought to myself, yes, I'm going to build it off of this idea that there's just enough going on that, she can kind of figure out something's going on. She can kind of tell that things aren't quite as they should be, but, in that childish sense is like, it's okay because nothing bad can happen. She's at the hospital to get better. It's because in my mind, I didn't think Rainbow would quite know how to break that to her. And after her freeze up at the Young Flyers competition, I sort of went with the idea that, she'd try to hold it off, and then this story happened.
Okay. There's a few stories out there that have Dinky as an adopted child of Derpy's. Why did you choose to go with a natural child instead?
I thought one of the things I remember about Dinky when I was first looking into the fan was like, okay, who's this Derpy character? It was this one of the things I came across was, there's this little filly in Winter Wrap-Up that looks a fair bit like her. So at that time, this is before baby cakes, obviously, so I wasn't quite familiar with the pony genetics, so I just kind of extrapolated that, hey, she kind of looks like her, therefore she might be related. And more stories started using that particular train of thought. So I decided to run with that. There's also the fact that they were related in My Little Denarians. They were related, or they are, I guess it's being set in stone now that they are related in Winningverse through various stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that was why I went with her being a natural child. And so far as, if you'll let me go off on a tangent a little bit, insofar as Sparkler, I didn't quite think that the age, I can't really tell. It's kind of hard to tell how old any character is in the show, with the exceptions of either the ageless, like the Royal Sisters, or the fairly old, like Granny Smith. And then you get the cakes are kind of middle-aged. You can tell they're middle-aged.
And Fluttershy, of course, is 1 year older than Pinkie Pie.
But of course, that little detail. But and so far as the rest, it's hard to nail down a specific age. You've got they're insofar as my headcanon goes, they're mid to late 20s. So my idea, the idea that I chose to run with was that, Dinky was a child that Derpy had when she was fairly young, not quite ready to be a mom, maybe a single mom. I don't know why I took that idea and ran with it, but I did. I think a little bit of building off of what I'd read around the universe, around the fandom, I should say. I just liked that idea enough to run with it and build a story off of it. So that was Dinky. Insofar as Sparkler, because of that age, because it was hard to tell, but because of my idea about the age, the general ages of the main six and the other ponies around them, I didn't think that she'd be a biological child. But I did like the idea. Obviously she's in Sisterhood Social, so there's some kind of relationship there to Dinky. So I went with the idea of her being an adopted child. And it was later on that we were trying to nail down why Derpy would adopt someone who's so significantly older than her own child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always the case when writing stories and you want to insert a neat little detail that will be significant to both previous events and later events. Then you have to make it make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it ties in with so much. So we also had a question about the Winningverse. It's become fairly popular. So are there any other authors working on stories in the Winningverse?
Quite a few, actually. We have a couple of people that contribute one story or just a little side story. And we've divvied it up a little bit into what's Winningverse canon, what's dead-derpy verse canon, and what's just stories with the winning pony, with Cloudkicker. So Chengar Qordath's managing that pretty nicely. So there are a bunch of authors in the Winningverse group there that have contributed, stories with Cloudkicker. And then there are a couple of authors that are still writing that have multi-chapter stories in Winningverse canon. So there's myself, obviously Chengar Qordath, who's the overarching driving force behind all of this. Ponybius, Jake the Ginger, let me think, Cloudhammer, or I guess he calls himself Fangwarden now. It's Trinary. Almost forgot about Trinary, and I'd be remiss to do that. I think Incidental Pegasus number 5 as well, and then Eakin, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, is also contributed a couple of stories that, while not technically canon, all of us about died laughing when we read it. So the incredible rockiness of a winning rock, if memory serves.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we have to put that on our list of stories to read.
Yes, you do. I will happily contribute to that because this story must be read.
Post-its, where are you? Here we go. Shadowpaint, go ahead and if you've got questions lying around, I'll write this down.
Okay. I'm gonna get. Sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the question that has started stuff in the past, either for the best or for the worst. Who is your favorite pony?
Oh, goodness gracious. Out of the fanon, obviously it's going to be Derpy and her family. Although, with all my work with Cloudkicker and her extending family, it's still growing. I've got a lot of ponies coming up in close second there. Insofar as the main six, gosh, I'm really not sure on that one. Rainbow Dash is the one I'm working with. And between, the show's canon and what we've extrapolated with her from the canon, she definitely has some interesting character arcs to go through. So I would say, insofar as the main six, probably Rainbow Dash, followed closely by Twilight. Fandom, definitely Derpy, followed closely by Cloudkicker.
Okay. I'm not in depth in all the there's the link. I'll add it to the list.
That's the Winning Rock story. Sorry, I had to dig that link up for you.
Oh no, it's fine. I was going to ask you, but I didn't deem it too relevant to the interview at the moment. Let's see. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, did you ever want or expect people to do recordings of your stories?
I think everyone who sits down to write a story has that that little nagging hope in the back of their mind that, I really hope this is going to take off. I really hope someone's going to do a reading of this. I really hope this. But in all honesty, I didn't quite expect it to take off the way it had. I was starting off at that point. I was like, hey, maybe I can get a few hundred views on this. That'd be awesome. Get a little bit of criticism, see where I can build up from here. And then my inbox exploded. So I was, and then Lisa, I saw in the comments, asked me if she could do a reading of that, and that certainly made my day. Reading that and then listening to it again. So yeah, I that hope was definitely there. The expectation, I hate to come across, as false modesty, but I honestly didn't really expect it to actually happen.
Okay. Shadowpaint, if you will.
Alright. What other stories do you have planned for the future?
Ooh, let me think. I've got my two big projects, What's in a Name and Changes. So those are both going to be what I'm focusing on. But we do try to do, the occasional one-shot story within the settings of the Winning Verse. It's just sort of, sometimes it's just something that fills in the gaps. And sometimes it's sort of a challenge story. One of my one-shots, The Incredibly Torn Mind of a Winning Daughter, was actually both of those. I felt that one of the more recent chapters of The Life and Times of a Winning Pony needed something a little extra. So I decided to sit down and write this from Sparkler's point of view. And we were having this this Winning Versary is what we called it. It was the 1-year anniversary of The Life and Times of a Winning Pony The Incredibly Dense Mind of Rainbow Dash is what it is. It's a 1-year anniversary of that story being written, since that was the starting point. So we all decided to sit down and write for that. And I wanted to do that one, and I didn't. I did When Goodbye Comes Too Soon instead. But I did keep that in the back of my mind, and The Incredibly Torn Mind of a Winning Daughter, came out a little bit later for that. Now, insofar as other stories outside of that, I don't have any plans for big multi-chapter projects. I'd like to, but honestly, between my own release schedule and, my commitments as one of the editors in the winning verse, I can't really do that without spreading myself too thin. But I do want to put out. I do have plans to put out a few more short stories. I'm not trying to go off the tangent of comma trauma, as we call it. Just trying to write things other than sad for a little bit, give things a little bit more backstory, write from some perspectives other than what I've done so far, and maybe add an extra chapter or two to the stuff I've already written. I've seen more than a couple of people asking me for another chapter of Torn Mind, so I'm tossing that idea around, pending inspiration and time.
Yeah, the Torn Mind story we did last week, or the week before, did seem to have quite an open ending. It didn't feel like the matter got resolved. An issue got resolved.
Yeah, and that one was deliberate. It had to tie directly back into the main story of Winning Pony.
Yeah, we figured as much.
Because a lot of it ties in directly to the next chapter. A lot of those questions were answered in that next chapter, but because it's still an ongoing story, I couldn't give too much of a sense of conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Just more, this happened, I need to get away, and then this is going to happen later in the chapter, so how do we make that link? Mm-hmm. And thus, a new shipping fandom was born somehow.
Let's see. We're nearing the end of the interview. Do you have anyone you would like to credit in context of all of your writing and pony stuff?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Like people who've inspired or helped you out, or...
I'm just trying to make sure I name everybody because I don't leave anyone out. Obviously, Chengar Qordath is the big one. Without his work, I don't think I'd have started writing in the fandom to begin with, at least not for keeps. And I definitely wouldn't be as good as I am, and as I've gotten. We help edit each other's work, and he's just been invaluable. Bouncing ideas, and occasionally coming down and saying, no, comma, you silly person, what are you doing? This doesn't work at all. Ponybius and Jake the Ginger and Trinary are also really big helps, for tossing around ideas and editing. Let me pull up my list here to make sure I don't leave anyone else out, because I've done that before and it's very embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
Makes for some awkward conversations.
It does, and I hate it when that happens because everyone who's a part of this definitely deserves a recognition. Without their help, I would not be doing quite as well as I am. Okay. It's obviously Chengar Qordath, Ponybius, Jake the Ginger, and Trinary. Cloudhammer, Hyper Exponential, Swiftest Shadow, and Incidental Pegasus number 5 are all phenomenal proofreaders. I definitely appreciate their help as well.
Okay.
Now, let's see. Yeah, even if it's just editing, and it's rarely just, proofreading there, because even if it's just in the comments of the Google document, it's like, it's not just a correction sometimes, like, it's not just, a typo, it's like, there's this, but, this character might also do this, or it's just an offhand comment about a small detail I hadn't thought of that I decided to expand on a little bit. So they're definitely a huge part of my creative process and very, very invaluably helpful.
I imagine especially comments questioning the motives of characters and their actions at certain spots helps out greatly with the story itself.
Yeah, the biggest thing, and like I mentioned, I'm still working on improving my characterization, and I'm getting a lot better than I am, but I am not going to kid myself and say that I can do all of this flawlessly all the time. So, sometimes I just need to be called out and say, hey, why is a character doing this? And I say sometimes, well, because of reasons. And they say, that's a silly reason. You can do that.
Mm-hmm. People who think they've got it nailed and who think they're perfect are not open to, improvements, especially when they think when they are thoroughly convinced they cannot improve any further. It's always good to open up to constructive criticism. So we have one question that we missed out on. What character do you think is most like you? Or what character do you think you are like most?
Oh, of the main 6?
No, just in general, I guess.
Okay, I would definitely say the Dew family. There's a little bit of me in each of them. Sparkler's taken on my sort of snarkastic streak. We call it sarcasm, snarkastic.
Mm-hmm.
Dinky has a little bit of younger me in her. The goofy stories, and some of the actually that blanket favorite. I actually have tucked away somewhere deep within the bowels of an attic. My old security blanket called Favorite. And I thought, that's, anytime Mom waxes nostalgic and starts talking about younger me, she mentions Favorite, and I thought, I should run with that. I should run with that and see what I can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Derpy has my clumsy streak. I am, how do I put this? Gravitationally inclined at times. And there are times when I tend to put my foot in my mouth very spectacularly. So I mean well, but it's just one of those things. Like, why did I go back and say that? Or I didn't. Darn it! That plate just it just leapt right off the counter. I mean, it grew legs and decided to just go skydiving. Really, honestly, for serious. So
that sounds a lot like Rainbow Dash as well.
Yeah, I could definitely see that too. Yeah, Rainbow has more of that self-assurance, and I won't say I'm not self-assured because, I know that if I put my mind to something, chances are pretty good I can do it, but I try not to be as brash. Whether or not I succeed is a separate issue, but it's sort of a self-checking process. But yeah, definitely a lot of myself in all 3 members of the Duke family.
Okay, and since you brought it up, which one of the main 6?
Which one of the main 6? Gosh.
Or Spike. Let's add him.
Or Spike. The Zoidberg of the...
Oh.
Main 6? Why not Spike?
Exactly.
Oh boy.
I can't really choose one that, fits me better than some. There's a little bit. I mean, I share traits with each of them. So if I had to pick one that I'm least like, I would have to say Pinkie Pie. I'm not quite introverted, but I'm definitely not as zany and out there as Pinkie Pie. It's just all in your face and, wow, hi, you're here. Hi. Oh, yeah, that's totally cool. Hey, you want to do this? You want to do this? Yeah, let's do this. Not me. I did know a person in school that was like that, and I got headaches. I mean, she's really nice and all that, but I can only take so much in measured doses of that kind of zaniness. So, yeah, least like Pinkie Pie, I would have to say.
We've come across a few Pinkie Pies in our time, so yeah, we know what you're talking about. Okay, Shadowpain, do you have any further questions?
No, not really.
Okay.
I think we covered everything.
Yeah. Comma, do you have anything, you still want to get out there before we close the interview?
Oh, let me think. Thank you all for reading. It's a big chunk of what makes me come back to my keyboard day after day and hash out these stories, is knowing that people are going to come back and read.
Mm-hmm.
And I do work to make it a story worth reading, and everyone I've named earlier is a huge part in helping out with that. But knowing that my stories are being read is definitely it's a big thing for any author. To know that their work's being read, is being people like it. that it generates discussion. I mean, even if it's just, I like this story, or, you heartless monster, why would you do such a thing? I get a lot of those. But any kind of feedback like that definitely helps. But, just knowing that my story's being seen is a huge encouragement.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, I just remembered something. I don't know if you guys know this yet. There is now a TV tropes page for the winning verse.
What?
Someone made a TV tropes page.
Oh, TV tropes. Yep.
Yeah, hang on, I'll post a link in the chat. But yeah. I just kind of stumbled on it earlier. I was like, wow, cool.
Yeah, I saw that a while ago, and I thought to myself, wow, that's a lot of stuff extrapolated from it. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
Okay. Well, like I said, I think we're basically at the end of the interview. Thank you for your time. We definitely hope you'll keep writing, because these stories are quite amazing. So we can't wait to read more. If you want to be ensured of stories being read on our live stream, we filter up until 16,000 words, because that's about as much as we can do in one night. And everyone rated. A lot of your stories are teen rated, understandably so. Though we tend to go for E-rated. Regardless, thank you for being with us, and we'll head over to the story When Goodbyes Come Too Soon, which is the perspective of Derpy to the story from the mouths of Fillies, also known as Innocents. So yeah, we're gonna go head over back to the cast and crew call.
And thank you again for taking the time to be on here. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Getting to talk to you about the stories you've written.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you will, please listen in to the reading, and we'll see you around.
Actually, if you have a link, I can post it to the others here. I've got them up on Steam.
I think I've got it here. Yes. There's the link. The software used for Midnight to Run is a little clippy, so we're also going to record it in parallel with a Skype recorder and upload that, because it's in high quality.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and exit this call. I have to go grab something before we start on the story, but I will be right back, and I will be in the main call.
Okie dokie. I'll see you there. Okay, thank you for spreading this around, and we'll be sure to, stay in touch and see if there's any development on this.
Sounds like a plan.
Okie dokie. Then, we'll see you. Bye-bye.